Welcome back to another very special episode of the Baseball America College Baseball Podcast. My name's Jacob Rudner. I'm joined as always by Peter Flaherty. Oh, Pete, do we have a lot to talk about on this show? Just another unbelievable day of college baseball action right here in Charles Schwab Field in Omaha, Nebraska. We have our championship series. It's set. Coastal Carolina is going to take on LSU for all the glory. Coastal beat Louisville today to advance, 11-3 win. Wasn't necessarily competitive. We're going to get into that. And then we saw LSU take on Arkansas for a spot in the championship series. LSU beat Arkansas 6-5 in what I will say is the most thrilling game so far of the College World Series. A crazy ninth inning leads to an LSU win. They'll compete for their second national championship in the last 3 years. So, lots to discuss. Big show. If you're just joining us, throw a comment in the comment section. We'd be happy to chat with you. We love answering your questions throughout the show. Just crazy. And you know what? Before I even ask you anything, Pete, Pint Size Analyze says turn this on from the chipping green. But what a series to expect and day of college baseball. Boy, do I agree with you, Pint Size Analyze. Let's analyze it, Pete.
Let's
Crazy
do
stuff.
it.
What you
Well, one,
got?
I'd love to know what chipping green this guy's tuning in from. It's midnight on the East Coast, and I mean, if assuming he's in the United States, the earliest it is for him is 9 p.m. So,
Whoa. What about Hawaii?
oh, very true. Assuming he's in the lower 48, the earliest it is 9 p.m. But yeah, the second game was just unbelievable. Particularly the ninth inning. You know, Ryder Helfrich got things started in the fourth. Arkansas went up 1-0. Then LSU took the lead. Arkansas took the lead back in the eighth. Jared Jones hit his second home run in as many games, also out to the opposite field to tie it. And then in the ninth, it sort of felt like Arkansas took the reins and had all the momentum and was on its way to forcing a decisive game three. Justin Thomas Jr., the 9-hole hitter. And I give him a ton of credit. LSU brought in Jacob Mayers to face him. He's an 80% plus heater usage guy. Through Justin Thomas, a first pitch slider. It wasn't a good slider at all. It hung up, but Justin Thomas Jr. was all over it, stung a 2-run single in the left. And at that point, it kind of felt like Arkansas was gonna take this thing. And then the ninth inning happened, and it was a defensive collapse of epic proportion. And it wasn't one guy. It excuse me. It was like 4 different players. The first one, and this is maybe the most underrated of it all, was the Derek Curiel ground ball to first base that Reese Robinette fielded. I thought it was Cam Kojal's ball all the way. I mean, like, I don't know why, Robinette ranged way over and tried to make a play. I get it. He's trying to make a big play in a big spot there, but that's Cam Kojal's ball without a doubt. And then Cole Gibbler was a little late getting off the mound, just like not to make an excuse for him, but like, he probably thought that was Cam's ball as well. And then there's a rush and errant throw to first. Curiel moves up to second. And then I think the play that stands out most to me is with 1 out with runners on first and second. Stephen Milam hits a ground ball right to Vaheva Aloy. Doesn't range at all. Doesn't need to range at all. Deeper into the 6 hole. Fields it cleanly. And instead of starting what everyone thought would be a potentially game-ending double play, he takes the easy out at third. And I think everyone is sitting there being like, what the heck? Because, I mean, even just sitting watching it, I thought that was game over. And it could have been a close play at first, but I have no idea why he went to third with it. And I think it's really easy for me and anyone else who's not in between the white lines to sit there and kind of armchair quarterback it. Like, when you're in it, the game can move really, really fast and go 1,000 miles an hour. So I think that's exactly what happened. It sped up on him, and he just flipped to third to get the second out. So I think he knows that in hindsight, it wasn't the right choice. I think that it pretty clearly wasn't. And then the next hitter, Arkansas was in no doubles. So Davlin was already playing pretty deep. Luis Hernandez top spins and hits a hard line drive that looked to be right at Charles, and he broke back, and then he broke back in, stumbled a little bit, hits off his throwing shoulder, kicks away from him. LSU ties the game, and then a hitter later, Jared Jones gets his barrel on a slider. That was a good pitch. He gets his barrel on a slider that's off the plate, gets just enough of it. Cam Kojal almost makes a really great leaping catch, kicks off his glove, rolls into center, and LSU wins it. So I'm kind of out of breath just explaining it, but it was multiple guys with defensive blunders that led to this.
Yeah, I think if you watched it is a little hard to pinpoint exactly which of the errors that you just listed out, or not necessarily errors that go down in the score sheet, but errors just in terms of the quality of play. Blunders is a better way to put it. It's hard to pinpoint which one was the biggest, and I think that for me, while Alloy's had a chance to turn two, we spoke to Dave Van Horn after the game, and he wondered if perhaps, just based on the way that Hiva fielded the ball, perhaps there was some sense that he needed to just go to third to be safe with it. He didn't want to throw the ball away. They had a 2-run lead, so there was a little bit of security. Maybe, just maybe, he thought that they didn't need to turn two right there, and there was a better play to make to be safe. I'm not necessarily trying to justify it either way, but that is what Dave Van Horn said. He was wondering if there was something going through his head. Obviously, in hindsight, Arkansas would have loved to have seen him have turned two. The play for me that really stands out as the backbreaker, though, is Charles Davlin's play in left field. I think some of that was his fault. I think some of that was just terrible circumstances. If you rewatch the play, which I've now done a couple times, it looks like he might have slipped upon first move towards that baseball. And with the ball hit as hard as it was and the sink that was on it, it just seemed like it put him immediately out of position. And perhaps, and Dave Van Horn said this too, he just lost sight of the ball after he lost his footing. And then by the time it got up on him as quickly as it did, he just panicked and went into a dive, and it was a disastrous play. 2 runs score there. The game gets tied. And as you mentioned, Jared Jones slashes that ball towards right center field, bounces off the glove of Cam Kojal, and the rest is history. LSU advances to the national championship. If you're just joining us, and there are a lot of you just joining us right now, make sure that you throw some comments in the comment section. We can see them live on the show. We want to throw them up on the broadcast and answer all of your college baseball questions. It can be about today's action. It can be about the upcoming series. It can be about anything, really. You want to talk transfer portal? We love talking transfer portal. Pete just dropped the top 10 transfer portal rankings. That list will expand periodically. And so there's a lot to talk about. Obviously, the season is still ongoing, and there are things happening that are going to shape next season. Before we move on, from Seattle was the answer to your question. Hitting some golf balls in Seattle for Pint Size Analyze. Thanks for joining us out on the West Coast. Peter, I am impressed by LSU, and I think that there is a sense among people who watch that game who will tell you there should be one more tomorrow, and LSU should still have to fight its way into the College World Series final. They're not going to have to do that because Arkansas choked the game away. That is true, and I agree with it. That being said, I personally think that the outcome of this semifinal between Arkansas and LSU was going to end the way that it ultimately did, which is the Tigers playing for a national championship. Do you see it that way? And my question to you also is, how prepared is this team to take on Coastal? Do you like them to win the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, so I was kind of preparing my thoughts in the ninth as if Arkansas was going to hang on and win and force a game 3, and it would have set the stage for a pretty well-rested Anthony Ianson to toe the rubber. And outside of Kate Anderson, I don't know if there's a guy in the country who Coach Johnson would rather have starting for him. So I was prepared to come on here and say that, it was a huge win for Arkansas. I'd still have LSU in 3 and still see him advancing to take on Coastal. What's really impressive to me, and you hinted at it, is they just find a way. They just win. And I mean, it sounds simple, but I mean, they can beat you in so many ways. They can outslug you. They can out-hit you. They can out-timely hit you. Everyone 1 through 9, it seems like, outside of Michael Braswell, not to single him out, but he's had a tough go of it lately. But it seems like everyone in that lineup has come through with a huge hit at one point or another, not only during the regular season, but also the postseason. And like, as I said, they just win. So Coastal, and we'll get to them in a little bit. They're on the 26-game winning streak, obviously the longest streak in the country by a pretty wide margin. They are an exceptional club, and not to discount them at all. It's just going to be really, really hard to take 2 or 3 from this LSU team. And I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with the Tigers heading into the final. They're going to hand the ball to Anthony Ianson in game 1. Depending on how that goes, who knows who will be available for game 2. But I just don't see the Chants taking 2 of 3 from them. And this very well may be bulletin board material, and I'll happily eat some crow if they end up doing so. Kind of a fun storyline. The last time Coastal made it to Omaha, which is also their first national championship, they took down LSU at Alex Box Stadium in the Super Regional. And then they took down a Coach Jay Johnson-led Arizona team in the CWS final to win the title. So some fun storylines there. But I guess long-winded answer short, it's just really hard to envision anyone but LSU dogpiling in a few days.
We'll get into our detailed predictions later on in the show. If you're just joining us now, welcome. We are answering your questions just like this from John C. I'm not sure what quite happened in the 9th. Me neither, John. Was it just the pressure of the moment? I would think so. I'll take that question. I would think so. And you know what? The players on Arkansas's team that were responsible, Zahiva Aloy, Reese Robinette, Charles Davlin, all those guys, and maybe even there were others, they're going to feel this, obviously. And a lot of people are going to point the finger and say, they blew it and all this and that. And to a degree, that's true. There's no hiding from it. I think people will also wonder how, at this level of college baseball, it's possible that something like that can happen. And I think that the answer is actually more simple than a lot of people think, which is that this is a pressure cooker. I mean, this was the largest crowd tonight, completely sold out, of this year's College World Series. LSU fans and Arkansas fans packed the Schwab. And that's a lot of pressure. Arkansas season's on the line. Things are kind of crumbling a little bit. You can feel the momentum slipping as the game gets deeper and deeper. And they make mistakes. I mean, these are, at the end of the day, 18 to 22, 23-year-old kids. And it is a ton of pressure. And so while we expect perfection for them, and some of these guys are going to go real well in the first round, it is still, college baseball. This is amateur baseball. And I think tonight, the amateur portion of that description really shined through. And that is the factor in college baseball. As much as we may want to believe that it isn't, as much as fan bases want to believe that their best players are immune to stuff like that, they simply are not. And we saw that tonight, Arkansas and their fans kind of learning that one the hard way. Good question from John. Back to pint size analyze. How does Coastal's pitching compare to LSU beyond their 1-2-3? I would think a Cason Evans type arm is something Coastal doesn't have. I'm going to disagree with you there, pint size analyze. I think that Coastal actually does have the arms. Matthew Potok, Ryan Lynch are both guys who have been outstanding so far this year. Hayden Johnson's been outstanding. They have, I believe, right now 7 relief pitchers with ERAs of 3 or lower after today's game. Their entire starting rotation has an ERA of 3.25 or lower. Jacob Morrison is creeping around that 2 to sub-2 ERA line, Sunbelt Pitcher of the Year. So to me, they stack up pretty well. What about for you, Pete?
I'm with you. I mean, I think that Coastal has one of, if not the most impressive pitching staffs in college baseball. A ton of credit goes to pitching coach Matt Williams in his first year, but a ton of credit goes to the arms as well for executing. And I mean, you have to kind of think that Cam Flukie is probably in line to start game 1 would be my guess. And then just depending on how everything goes and how he's feeling, maybe you get Jacob Morrison in game 2. I mean, I have to think that's where they're headed. And I think with that 1-2 punch alone, that gives them more than a puncher's chance. They're going to have to really, really pitch to win. But they've done exactly that, not only during the regular season, but we've seen in the postseason especially. And in the bullpen, they've got their 4 main dudes, Dominic Carbone, Matt Potok, Hayden Johnson, and Luke Jones, all 4 of which have been excellent all year for Coach Schnall, especially Ryan Lynch. He's allowed 2 earned runs across 31 innings, 35 Ks. Yeah. Oh yeah. 0.58. I said he, okay. Yeah. But they're going to rely heavily on that quartet. So I think if you're talking about a stuff and just an Arsenal standpoint, they don't have a Case and Evans type, but from a performance standpoint, they have multiple Case and Evans type guys. So it'll be a really, really fun title series.
Related question here from David. Does Coastal or LSU have the better starting pitchers in your opinion? Kind of an interesting question here. You want to tackle that one first, Pete, and then I'll go after you?
Yeah, it is an interesting one because I don't think that it's like this set it and forget it answer.
Yep.
Just like some people may think. Now, I think just in the broad scope of like if you take out, current workloads and what's happening, you're just comparing the two. It's really, really tough to beat that 1-2 punch of Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson, not just for Coastal, but any team in the country. I think it's the best for my money's worth. But Cade threw 7 innings. A week ago, he should be ready to go. I would say for game 2, if not game 1. And Anthony Ianson is going to be very, very well rested. So I still lean LSU with the starting pitching advantage, just because of that 1-2 punch with Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson. Cade could be the first pitcher off the board in July. Anthony Ianson is kind of a potential dark horse to go in the first round, if not the first. Maybe early second or in the sandwich picks. So that's as good of a duo as you can get, and that's no disrespect to Jacob Morrison and Cam Flukie, who's a really, really good 1-2 punch in their own right. But Anderson and Ianson is just a different animal. Bottom line is, though, we're in for a real treat on the mound for the first 2 games of this thing.
At the risk of giving a non-answer to you, David, I actually would tell you that I'm really not sure because I think that there's 2 different realities here. I look at Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson, who Pete just mentioned, both of whom are outstanding. And in my opinion, if it were up to me, both are first-round picks, in a month from right now. Outstanding pitchers, but they are draft talents, and they've gotten results in the college game. There's a reason that they're going to be in the conversation that they're in. There's a reason that the projections say what they say. But I also do think that there's something to be said for just the sheer quality of Jacob Morrison, Cam Flukie, and Riley Eichhoff. That trio, to me, is the most complete trio in the country. I don't know that there's any other team that has as formidable a 3-man rotation as what Coastal Carolina sports right now. And that is not a draft-related comment. The draft side of me says, obviously, it's LSU. Those guys have stuff out the wazoo. They're crazy. But Coastal Carolina has unbelievable results. Nobody has been able to post or even come close to, outside of Northeastern, and even, they're not here. Nobody's been able to come close to what Coastal Carolina has been able to do on the mound. That's especially the case with that starting rotation. It's their calling card. And so for me, right now, as we look at this series before a game has been played, I see a wash. I really actually do see very even starting pitching. On one hand, it's the draft guys, and on other, it's just 3 college dudes who know how to go out there and get outs and be in the zone and challenge teams to do damage. Now, importantly, LSU is a team that does damage, and we saw that tonight. When you throw a ball in the zone, they know how to hit it. Jared Jones is an expert at that. I think that Jared Jones sometimes gets into a funk when he starts to chase a little bit. And there were even instances tonight where that became a problem for him against Gabe Gackle. But you also go to that 9th inning and you put a ball in the strike zone to Jared Jones, and he's going to punish it. They don't miss mistakes very often. That's the case up and down that lineup. Even at the very bottom with a guy like Michael Braswell, he can run into one every once in a while despite hitting below the Mendoza line. It's just a really good team. Jake Brown came off the bench tonight and delivered one of the biggest hits of the evening. So there's a lot of depth. I think that Coastal Carolina is going to be challenged, especially because they are a strike-throwing bunch to a degree, more than they are a swing and miss bunch. That's the case for Morrison. That's the case for Eichhoff. Flukie is really somebody who can get into the swings and misses quite a bit. But I do think that, it's so close. It is super, super close between these two staffs. That's a great question, David. Thanks for doing that. If you're just joining our show live on YouTube right now, of which there are many of you, throw your questions in the chat. We are having a great time trying to answer all that we can. Pint Size Analyze is back with another. Who will be the best position player on the field? I'm gonna adjust your question here ever so slightly. Pint Size Analyze from Seattle. Pete, why don't you give me the best position player in your opinion on both teams? So one from LSU, one from Coastal, and I'll do the same.
Pretty easy for me. Caden Bodine and Coastal, and Derek Curiel for LSU. Bodine for me is a slam dunk first rounder. This year, elite contact skills, one of the better and more polished hit tools collegiately to go along with a really, really advanced defensive skill set. He's one of, if not the best receivers in the country, just super, super quiet hands, consistently steals strikes, works below the baseball. It's just a whole lot of what you look for. And he's got an extremely accurate, above average arm. It's a really impressive overall defensive skill set. Still number 2 defensively for prominent draft guys behind Luke Stevenson, but still an above average defender in his own right, 60 hit. He kind of makes the Coastal offense go, even though there have been a number of guys throughout this tournament and throughout this season that have come through with timely hits. He's their guy. And then for LSU, it was actually a little bit more difficult to come up with this answer just because they've got so many dudes who have been key producers for him. And I may have, I don't want to say I jumped the gun on Derek Curiel, because I think in terms of like longevity draft prospect wise, he will end up being the most prominent selection of LSU starting 9, but just best player this year. And in the tournament, I'm just going to audible and go with Jared Jones, which is probably the direction in which you were headed as well. But team lead 22 homers, 76 RBIs, also lead the team. Like, he is one of the most, like, the textbook definition of like grown man strength. It's double plus power. He gets to it in game. We saw it tonight, and we saw it the game before, but tonight took a 96-mile-an-hour fastball from Gabe Gackle, caught it deep in the zone, 96 in, 109 out to right field to tie the game, and backside homers at Charles Schwab. That's no easy feat, regardless of how hot the bats are and the baseballs being like hitting golf balls. But I'll go with Caden Bodine and Jared Jones.
Yeah, I mean, you stole my thunder there. Those are the 2 guys that I would go with as well. I think that Caden Bodine has shown throughout this week that not only is he, a really good bat-to-ball guy who's going to challenge a defense and put the ball in play, but man, have I been impressed with his receiving behind the plate. He is an outstanding defensive catcher who is extremely talented when it comes to stealing strikes and helping out his pitching staff. I was having a conversation off the record with Jacob Morrison, Coastal Carolina's ace, and I asked him, what makes that guy so special behind the plate? And it's not necessarily how he calls a game or how he manages the field or how he manages the staff. It is how he steals strikes. He is able to extend the zone in every direction, and he does his pitchers a lot of favors that way. I think that is one of the most helpful and perhaps underrated qualities of a college catcher, because we see at the pro level, a lot of guys are capable of framing up pitches and doing a good job. We don't see it all that often, especially at this level of that Caden Bodine's capable of doing it in college. He is a space above the rest. It is crazy to watch him run a game and steal strikes and help his pitching staff out. For LSU, I think Derek Curiel was a great answer by you. For me, though, there has been one player who has just been, like Bodine, a cut above the rest in terms of his impact and in terms of being able to propel his team to the heights that they want to be at, and that's Jared Jones. He's just been so good for this team. When he's going, the offense goes. I think that he kind of dictates the pace for this LSU offense to a degree. We've seen him be really effective to the opposite field, which I think is super encouraging for him. And so it was, I think you can go either way. There are a lot of guys. Luis Hernandez is somebody who I think is underrated. Starting catcher for LSU, he's been very good today. He had a great day. Was very effective on the bases for somebody who doesn't necessarily move as well as everybody else. Josh Pearson, Jake Brown's another one who I think is important to mention. Stephen Milam is probably somebody who should be in that conversation as well with the way that he's been playing. So there are a lot of options over at LSU, but I will agree with Pete and go with Caden Bodine and Jared Jones. We are going to go to our next commenter, Warren S. The Chandeliers, Chanticleers, played the easiest bracket in College World Series history. I hope they come in as cocky and overconfident I expect them to be. Warren, I disagree with your comment. I really think that this is a great Coastal Carolina team. They've shown repeatedly that they can throw the ball exceptionally well. We have seen them score an average of 8 runs a game in the College World Series, which in this ballpark, good luck doing that and replicating that. I think that they were able to beat a Louisville team today that is scrappy and aggressive and knows how to drag teams into the mud in a way that they've been able to do consistently all postseason long. They took out the number 1 seed in the country. They advance out of that bracket. They go into the super regional round. They advance out of that. And then they come here and they give a couple teams a good run. Oregon State, I think, is an outstanding team. We saw Dax Whitney look like one of the best freshman pitchers in the country, if not hands down the best freshman pitcher in the country. Iva Arquette has a chance to be the first overall pick this year. Trent Caraway, Gavin Turley, all these guys are outstanding baseball players. So while I agree that Coastal advanced out of the easier bracket between the two brackets, I definitely don't think it was the easiest in College World Series history. I also definitely don't think that they came across as an overly confident team or as cocky. I think that they've kind of earned exactly where they're at. They're on a 26-game winning streak. Thank you for commenting, but I completely disagree with you. If you want to chat about college baseball and you have some thoughts and opinions that you want to end up on live broadcast for the world to see, jump into the comment section right now and throw your comments down there. We'll throw them up on the broadcast. And it's all lighthearted. You know, we're allowed to disagree over here at Baseball America. Everybody's got an opinion and it is the free world. So go ahead and share it. We love to chat. And we're going to keep this going for a couple more minutes. It's technically National Championship Eve, even though this year we do have 2 days off because neither of the if necessary games will be played. So we're going to take some extra time to kind of chat and preview the College World Series. One other thing that I will tell all of you who are watching us live right now, let's talk transfer portal. There are thousands of people in the portal right now. Pete and I are studying the portal closely to see who we like the most. Pete has his top 10 transfer rankings out there right now. But while we wait for more questions to come in, I want to talk about that first game. We spent plenty of time talking about the disaster that we saw at the end of the LSU-Arkansas game. Let's talk about just a pure whooping, for a lack of better terms. I thought that Coastal Carolina continued to play the part today. They looked excellent on offense, jumped out to a 6-0 lead in the first inning. And this season, they are 36-2 when they score first. So kind of the death knell there for Louisville in the first inning. It pretty much was over as soon as the game started. And when you have a guy like Riley Eichhoff on the mound and then the bullpen that you can put in after him, it's going to be really hard to win. Pure dominance. Give me some takeaways from that game, Pete.
Yeah, this one fits the description of a little thing I like to call B to A, belt to a word we probably can't say on the YouTube live stream, but I think everyone knows what it is. Like you said, this thing was over basically from the jump, 6th spot in the first, and it was wraps. Colby Thorndike's 3-run double, his second 3-run double in as many games. The veteran's been really, really good in Omaha for the Chants. Just outstanding, just like so many players in this lineup. But his 3-run double was the biggest individual swing of the game. And then from there, it was just very business-like. Veteran strike throwing specialist, sinker baller Riley Eichhoff did his thing. 5 1/3 solid innings, allowed only 3 runs, 4 Ks, consistently in and around the strike zone. And then the bullpen trio of Matt Potok, Hayden Johnson, and lefty Dominic Carbone all threw the ball really well. All should be available on Saturday night if need be. Like for Dominic Carbone, especially 16 pitches. He basically just got his bullpen in a game. So he'll be ready to go. Potok 6 pitches, and then Hayden Johnson with 2 1/3 innings, 29 pitches, 2 1/3 perfect innings at that. He's also another really, really good arm. As we've mentioned, he should also be ready to go on Saturday. So the Chants are locked and loaded heading into the championship series.
All right, Pete, take a look at your screen here real quick. I'm going to show you a list that you are certainly familiar with. If you're watching our YouTube live show, go on over to baseballamerica.com/college, click on that story, and then click on subscribe, because we are going to be expanding this list well beyond 10 as this next month unfolds. The transfer portal closes on July 2nd. It will have been a month that it is open. Kind of a weird year this year for the transfer portal. I feel like we've seen some really interesting names go in. Not a lot of great pitching, or actually, let me rephrase that. not a lot of pitching that's been great and didn't have a destination already picked out. These are Pete's top 10 players in the portal right now. As I said a second ago, this list will expand. And if you have any questions about the transfer portal while you're looking at that list or any other people, make sure you throw them in the comments section and we will answer them live on the show, just like this one from Pint Size Analyzed. Who are the best players transferring from JUCOs or D2/D3 schools to D1 schools? I'm going to preface this Pint Size Analyzed by saying we're going to save some of the secret sauce for over at BA. Make sure you go check out our content. But I will. I'm gonna lob one up here for Pete. If you ever seen the LeBron James D Wade dunk photo, this is that moment right now. There's a certain pitcher heading on over to Tennessee who I think is worth some conversation, who Peter has been very high on behind the scenes. And I'm not even going to steal his thunder by mentioning his name. Peter, who you got?
Yeah, so the top guy who fits the description for me is right-hander Matt Barr from SUNY Niagara. He recently announced his commitment to Tennessee, though I think there's a very strong likelihood he gets drafted and signs. But a really nice pickup for the Vols, 6'6", just a really intriguing, moldable ball of clay. Has 2 high spin breaking balls that today at the draft combine, which our Carlos Colazo will have already has a ton of coverage and will continue to have a ton of coverage over at baseballamerica.com. He'll probably touch on it, but spun both his curveball and slider in the 3,000 plus RPM range, fastball up to 96, 97 this spring with a ton of life through the zone, another high spin pitch that he'll run up in the 26, 2,700 RPM range. Projectable frame. There's some low-hanging fruit to clean up in the delivery, but that should be no issue at all as he transitions into pro ball or if he gets to campus to work with pitching coach Frank Anderson. But bottom line is he is a really, really intriguing and high-level talent who I think has a pretty high ceiling. So he would be my 1-1 guy. And then I guess the more traditional route, D2, D3 school guy, infielder Tristan Salinas from North Greenville, Division II powerhouse. He hit 347 this spring with 12 doubles and 12 homers. He's got a handful of power force suitors as well. So really impressive guy. At the lower levels you could call it, but that's not to discount the talent.
Jason chimes in and says Seth Dardar is a great pickup for LSU. We agree with that one for sure. Pete and I have talked about that. Pete, you want to give a quick scout on that?
Yeah, really good pickup. One of Kansas State's more productive hitters this year, hit a shade under 330 with 18 doubles and 13 homers. He's a local Louisiana kid, just a big physical kind of country strong kid. Whose left-handed bat should play really well, and power from the left side should play really well at Alex Box Stadium.
Let's jump back into College World Series talk. Unless you have questions about the transfer portal, of course you can throw them in there. Jason, real quick, looks like half of Duke's roster is transferring, and a ton of Virginia players. Eek. Yes, that is modern college sports for you. Coaching changes. That's how that works. The second a coaching change happens, all players are eligible to enter the transfer portal. And by the way, I will add, very importantly, that is the case even after the transfer portal closes. So the portal closes on July 2nd, right? They're going to get rid of, you can't necessarily enter if you're just anybody at that point. However, if your head coach leaves or gets fired or takes another job, every single player on that roster becomes eligible to enter the portal. And to be quite frank with you, why wouldn't they? I mean, you kind of have an opportunity to go and explore your market. At the very least, if you love who you play for, you go follow them to their next destination because there's a good chance that whoever they're replacing, all of that guy's players are probably on the way out too. And so there are roster spots to be had. And the reality is this in college sports now, you can't shy away from this. There's money to be made, lots of money to be made. I'm going to pull this list up here one more time. Look at these names, folks. If you're watching our live stream right now, every single guy you see on that screen right now is going to get a payday to play more college baseball, and as they deserve. They're all very good. Pretty much everybody on that list, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, is a top draft prospect in their respective drafts. Some of them, even in this draft, I look at a guy like Ryan Weidman, who's committed to Clemson. I think Ryan Weidman's going to be a second-round pick. and he won't even put on a Clemson jersey once outside of a photo shoot, which is exactly what he did to announce his commitment. But that's where we're at. It is a money game at every level. It's a money game in college. It's a money game at the pro level. And if you're like Ryan Weidman and you have some leverage with your eligibility left, you can enter the portal and head to a big school, then you have some pull. You can go back to these pro teams and say, well, you're not going to pay me X amount. I'm not going to sign with you via the draft. I'm going to go play at school like Clemson for a year, prove that I'm an outstanding player, which, by the way, I think Ryan Weidman is. And I also will add, I think that there are a lot of pro teams that are evaluating him at just the right level, and they're going to pay him handsomely. But at the same time, he's not necessarily losing money to go back to school. He maintains his eligibility. He still has 2 more years of that. He's a young player for his class. And so he can go back to school, get a payday at Clemson, re-enter the draft a year later, and in my opinion, probably be no worse off for it. So yes, Jason, to go back to this comment, in case anybody is just joining us, it does look like half of Duke's roster, probably more than that, is transferring. A ton of guys going to Virginia with Chris Pollard, just the same way as a bunch of people went with, Brian O'Connor from Virginia over to Mississippi State. It's just the way things work in today's college world. I want to talk about kind of the mixing point here between the transfer portal and what goes on behind me at the College World Series. It's really hard to be a college coach who's still playing and trying to recruit the portal. Dave Van Horn in his post-game press conference tonight was talking about a couple things that are important. One, they think that they have 8 to 10 players on their roster who are going to go real well in this year's draft. They won't be coming back to school. All of those guys will need to be replaced, whether that's Gage Wood, who we think is a first rounder, or Zach Root, who has a chance to go well, probably a second round-ish pick. And many, Vahiva Aloy has a chance to be a first rounder, and others. They need to replace those guys, and they also need to be able to set up visits. Well, now they're going to be able to start doing that, but it's June 19th. There are schools that have had weeks of head start, including in the SEC, to be able to get ahead of that. One thing that I thought was interesting from just last week at the College World Series was when a panel of movers and shakers from the NCAA gathered to basically discuss things that could be happening with the sport, changes that might be ahead. And one of them that stuck out to me was potentially moving the transfer portal window and creating unique windows for each sport. For baseball, that would likely mean pushing it back, maybe even to after the draft, but that gets really messy with how things work academically. Pete, what's your sense, just as somebody who covers the portal so closely? Is it time to move the portal back? Is it time to make a unique window for baseball? Or with the way that the draft works and the academic calendar, is it kind of just a tough world situation? And it should stay where it's at. What's your take on the matter?
I don't really think the date and where it's at is kind of causing so much of these issues. I just think that there are no really rules and regulations in a general sense around it. Like, it's like the wild, wild west when you take into account NIL, the world of advisors and agents. Like, there are schools that are reaching out and offering kids who aren't even in the portal, in major schools at that, just kind of calling kids and being like, hey, blank check, or calling the advisor, or even reaching out to the kids' parents and seeing where they're at. So, I mean, if a school wants you and wants to get to you, they'll literally do anything to get to it. And when I say anything, I mean anything. So, I mean, it's just a really crazy time. It's, each year it seems like, the previous year gets one up in terms of how many guys are entering, who's entering, where guys are going, NIL. It's just bananas. And I can't even imagine, like, any of these 8 teams that were in Omaha or playing in a super regional, or like trying to lock in and, be your best team from top to bottom on the field, while also trying to navigate the portal and getting big guys in there for visits, and trying to, make sure these bigger guys in the portal you don't get passed up on. It's just a whirlwind that I can't even imagine dealing with. Like, if it's hard enough for me to sit here and try and cover and deal with, I can't even comprehend what it must be like for, Coach Van Horn, and his coaching staff.
We are nearing the finish line here on our pre-national championship live broadcast over at Baseball America. Again, if you're watching right here, we encourage you to do 2 things. First of all, throw your comment in the comments section. Come on and join us in the conversation. We love answering your questions. and chatting baseball. Even if you have a take on the game, we'll throw your takes up on the screen and discuss your take. Doesn't have to be a question. So jump on into the comment section, get active in there. The other thing that we would tell you to do, go on over to baseballamerica.com/college. There is an unreal amount of college content going up right now, whether that's Peter's summer ball preview on the Cape, Peter's transfer portal rankings. Boom, look at that. Top 10 just came out on the site. We love that. We got recaps of games. We got feature stories. We got insider analysis. You like Cade Anderson in this year's draft? Well, guess what? You want to know what it's like to face Cade Anderson? I talked to 5 of his teammates to ask them what exactly that is like. You can go over to the site right now and read that. You like West Coast baseball? You're proud of West Coast baseball after 3 of its teams reached the College World Series? We wrote about that this morning. So go on over to baseballamerica.com/college. We love when you read our stuff, and we love when you get in the comment section and ask questions about college baseball as well. Peter, as we near the finish line here of our pre-national championship broadcast, I'm going to ask you a question that you have had no time to prepare for. So this is a complete surprise for our viewers and for Peter. I want you to tell me one thing about each team. We're going to start with Coastal, and we're going to do LSU after that. So just your Coastal thought first. One thing that stands out to you about Coastal that you think could propel it to a national championship.
This is a layup, and I think that you'd probably say the same, but it's pitching staff, and we've talked about it at length now, not just on this show, but in prior shows. Their 3.2 ERA is second nationally only to Northeastern. Statistically, in terms of a 1-2 punch, and you had hit on this with Jacob Morrison and Cam Flukie, you can probably flip it around for this weekend with Flukie likely getting the ball in game 1 and Morrison game 2. But we'll see. They have the pitching to win this thing. I think offensively that, on paper, you give LSU the edge. It's hard not to, with so many pieces and big time pieces at that can do damage. But, they have the horses to pitch its way to a title. We've seen them pitch their way to Omaha. We've seen them pitch their way through Omaha. I'm not going to start betting against that right now, even though I'll pick LSU. It's going to be a really, really good and a really, really hard fought series. So you combine that with Coastal's bullpen and the quartet of arms we mentioned earlier, the pieces are in place there. And this is the furthest thing from a cocky and overconfident group. I think that they have just the right amount of confidence of knowing they can play with and win against any team in the country. But also know that they can play free and easy, that they're going to be playing with the house's money a little bit. So it's sort of the perfect storm that's kind of brewing. And I'm very excited to see it play out.
So I easily could have gone with the pitching, and I actually was going to go with the pitching had I not tossed it to you first. But for the sake of covering more ground here, I'm not going to say the pitching, and I'm going to go with something that I think is actually quietly equally important that we haven't talked about as much on our previous podcasts or tonight, and that's Coastal Carolina's offensive versatility. I think that this is a team that's capable of putting up runs in a variety of ways. And chief among them is their ability to swing the ball into the gaps. We've seen that with Caden Bodine. We've seen that with Colby Thorndike, more than anybody, arguably, in the entire College World Series field, punishing balls into the gaps and driving in runs. Today, he had a huge bases-loaded double to clear the bases in the first inning against Louisville. He's been stinging the ball all over the yard. And as we have talked about on our show, look behind me. Allow me to get out of your way real quick. Look over here. This is a deep ballpark. It's super hard to score here, and teams struggle to do it every year. Last year, here's a stat for you. Last year, teams averaged just over 5 runs a game right here because they couldn't get the ball out of the yard. This year, teams are hitting just under 270, and they're not averaging many more runs than that. But Coastal is averaging 8 runs a game in this yard, and they aren't doing it with homers. They're keeping the ball in the yard. They're scoring lots of runs. They're efficient. They grind out at-bats, and they punish mistakes, but they do it by spraying it in the gaps, and we know that that's key here in Omaha. So, yes, the pitching is good, but this Coastal team can really hit too, and I think that has the opportunity to prove nightmarish for LSU. Pete, I'm going right back to you here. What's your thought on LSU?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a great point, though, about Coastal's offense, because I did get the layup with the pitching, but their ability to to stack quabs, we've seen it obviously, and I think everyone has seen it nationally. in the last handful of weeks. But they've been doing it all year, and it's just they kind of just pass the baton and everyone steps up. So that's really impressive. Also, what I've been drinking, in case anyone is questioning what it might be, it's just a San Pellegrino, little carbonated orange, no free ads, but that's all it is. But with LSU, man, it's hard to pick one because there are so many avenues in which I could go. It's just a really loaded team on both sides of the baseball. We talked about it's 1-2 punch on the mound with Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson. That's as formidable as you can find in college baseball. They've got their own stable of horses in the bullpen, whether you're talking about flamethrower Chase Shores. Zach Cowan probably won't be hot until game 3, considering he just threw tonight. Case and Evans, maybe he starts game 3 in a hypothetical game 3. Jaden Newt. They use Jacob Mayers tonight. There are just so many pieces. Like, I haven't even talked about the offense yet. Like, this is just the mound. So I guess my overarching theme with LSU is its bevy of weapons and depth on both sides of the baseball. We have hammered that word home, depth, with LSU since really all season, with what makes them great, what makes them a national championship contender. This was during the year, but what could finally lead them to dogpiling? It's just the sheer amount of depth they've got. They can beat you in so many ways. They're comfortable getting into any style of game. They can out-pitch you. They can out-hit you. They can out-slug you. They too, and they've done this now all season for the most part, or outside of a couple of one-off games or a dud series or two. But that theme of stacking quality at bats and stacking quabs and like selfless ABs, they've done that as well. So it's a group, led by Coach Johnson, who knows what it takes to get to Omaha. He knows what it takes to win in Omaha. You have a handful of guys who were there in 23 who know how to do the same. They've just got a lot going on for them in all facets. I think that they're just set up really, really well for this weekend.
All right. I love it. I love it. And I think that everything you just said is true, and I agree with it. But I am going to be ultra specific here about LSU, and the thing that I think will key, and not to get ahead of us here because we're about to do our predictions after I make my comment here. But the thing that will key LSU's win is one guy and one guy only, and his name is Cade Anderson. I don't see, for my money, and I have watched now a ton of college baseball players in person. I've seen Patrick Forbes. I've seen Anthony Ianson in person. I've seen Tyler Brenner. I've seen Liam Doyle. I've seen Liam Peterson. I've seen Aiden King. I have watched this year some of the very best pitching that college baseball has to offer. Jacob Morrison, I've seen in person. I deserves a shout out, and he's going to play in this series as well. I've seen a lot. At this point, for me, Cade Anderson takes the cake. I think that Cade Anderson is a superb pitcher. He's capable of giving this LSU team supreme length. And that in this series, in this ballpark, is everything. If he can give another great start like he did the other day, I don't really see a way that Coastal's able to do this. I think that he is going to be able to give LSU such an advantage. You get a day of rest on Thursday. You get a day of rest on Friday. Then you hand the ball over to the best pitcher in the country. He has a chance to go out and give you 6+ innings, 7, maybe 8 innings in that game. He'll give you 130 pitches in the national championship. And that's going to continue to rest what is also a very good bullpen. I think Coastal's a great team. I've said that on this podcast. I do think that they have a chance to push LSU. I think that they're capable on the mound. I think that they're capable at the plate. But Cade Anderson is just, again, a cut above the rest. I really, really like that group. I really, really like Cade Anderson, and I just think that he is the key to success. I just kind of burnt my prediction there. But Pete, it's prediction time, and again, this is the reminder for those of you who are still with us, and we thank you for being with us still on our live show. If you have questions and you want them answered, now would be the time to do so, because we are going to start to wrap up here. In lieu of final thoughts, Pete, what is your College World Series final prediction?
I'm going to keep it kind of simple and try and keep it as short as possible. I've got LSU. Now, I don't think they dominate both games, like our man Fanatical Fan is saying, but for kind of the reasons that you laid out and we laid out throughout the show, I think Coastal is going to give it all it can handle. I think they're going to be a couple or a few really competitive games. And they're going to push LSU, but I think in the end it's LSU dogpiling. And again, it's for the reasons we've laid out, just the sheer amount of depth and weapons they've got, both offensively and on the mound. And we're going to see that 1-2 punch likely turn in at least what I think will be a couple of quality starts. And, they'll have their second national title potentially in the last 3 years. So I've got the Tigers.
Hard to disagree. Not going to do it. I think the Tigers end up winning this one. And as competitive as I think Coastal will be, and as much as I'd love to see this go 3 games and into Monday, I think it's a 2-game sweep for those LSU Tigers. I just don't see people beating Cade Anderson. This is not a knock on Coastal. And I don't want any Coastal fan watching this to think that that's what I'm trying to do here. I love this Coastal team. I think if they had any other opponent, maybe besides Arkansas, and even Arkansas for that matter, I think Coastal wins a national title. The one team that Coastal doesn't want to face and that anybody doesn't want to face at this point are these LSU Tigers. They were our number 1 team on the BA Top 25 going into the postseason for a reason. We had said in our final regular season podcast of the year that we thought LSU was looking best positioned to win a national title. We're a couple weeks down the line from that. I still believe it to be true. I think that they're in the best position to win this whole thing. And like I said a couple minutes ago, I think that Cade Anderson is the entire reason to do with that. He is one seriously outstanding pitcher, and I do think that he positioned the Tigers beautifully to win their second national title in the last 3 years. Pete, we've reached the end of our show here, and I'm going to filibuster here just a little bit to see if there are any final thoughts from the viewers. Anybody wants to chime in? Give us a win prediction. Jump in and give us a win prediction. I'll throw them up on the screen as I run through our final remarks here. But slowly, this is going to do it for this episode of the Baseball America College Baseball Podcast. I will encourage you to do this. Head on over to baseballamerica.com/college. Go on and subscribe.
From the Chipping Green.
From the Chipping Green, Coastal Carolina in 3. Hope that the stroke is looking good over there in Seattle. Pint size analyzed. But yes, this is going to do it. Head on over to baseballamerica.com/college. Subscribe to Baseball America. We have so much more than just college content. If you're a baseball fan and you're not subscribed, my question to you is this: what are you doing? You're making a mistake, is what you're doing. So go and subscribe. And one more thing, we're going to be back with this podcast after every national championship game. We will also have some predictions on the site at the link I just mentioned. And then after the College World Series is over, we're going to have a couple of podcast episodes to break down the action. But for this one, that is going to do it. My name is Jacob Rudner. He is Peter Flaherty. We will see you next time.